Hey everybody, a big welcome back to my channel. I'm so excited for today's video because it is part 2 of my having a baby in Denmark versus the UK. So if you're new to my channel, my name is Erin, I'm Canadian, but I'm married to a Dane and we live together here in Copenhagen. We've got 2 kids. One of them was born in London, England, because we spend a lot of time over there. And the second one was just born this past summer here in Copenhagen. So I've been doing like a little comparison. My part 1 video was about being pregnant, that kind of maternity side of it. And then today's video, part 2, will be about the birth, the hospital, any differences, similarities, things like that. So I'm really excited to share it with you guys. Just quickly before we get into it, I'm going to do a quick disclaimer. The first one being that my first son was born pre-corona, so pre-pandemic, before we even knew that was a thing. And my second one was born, so this past summer, like not in the middle of the pandemic, like we know it's a thing, and we're kind of like not post-corona life, like it is still a thing, but you know what I mean. Like there might be some procedures or like hospital things that might have changed, like pre versus post-corona. So that is one little caveat. The second is also that I had very different types of birth, and don't worry, I'm not going to get into super detailed like medical stuff, so if you're a bit squeamish about that, don't worry, it's not going to be that kind of video. But just that also might influence the differences that I experienced. And the third quick one is, of course, this is just my experiences. Someone else might have, even in the same hospital, very different experiences to my own. So just keep that in mind before we get started. So let's get into it. Oh, and before we start, I'm going to do at the end of this video kind of just a quick channel update for the future of this channel, what I have planned, all the things coming up. So if you're not so interested in the kid stuff, then you can I'll put chapters in this video and you can just skip to the end. All right, let's get started. So let's talk first about the births themselves. So like I said, there were 2 very different ones. With my first in London, he was late, he was induced. It was a natural birth, and literally every medical intervention that you can imagine, it happened. It happened to me. It was a really traumatic birth, honestly. The first, I had 2 blood transfusions. I was unconscious for the first like 24 hours of my son's life. It was just everything, almost everything. Thank God we were okay, but almost everything that could go wrong did go wrong. So it was a very, I just felt with the UK one very much like things were happening to me, like I was not in control at all. And again, that might be the nature of the birth. It could also be that it was my first birth, so you really don't know what to expect. You don't know what questions to ask. You don't know what's normal, what's not normal. And of course, in the UK as well, you have, when you're still pregnant, you meet with the midwives and you come up with your birth plan. So you can say, I want a water birth, no, I want an epidural, or you could just completely tell them how you would like the birth to go. Of course, it's childbirth, things rarely go how you expect them to, as evidenced in my case. So it just, yeah, when I think back on it, I just felt very much out of control, and not just of the situation, but also just I felt like the people, I mean, it's London, it's a really busy hospital, people are coming and going all the time, so they might not have the same amount of time with you that, like, not that I felt neglected, that's the wrong word, but just, I don't know, I felt things weren't as explained to me. Whereas, just to give an example, over here, they are, and I think I mentioned this in my maternity video, they are very big on consent. They want you to be informed every step of the way, to make the choice that's right for you, and to understand what that choice might mean, or I felt very included in the conversation along the way. Whereas in the UK, if something was happening, like for example, one of the medical interventions that was happening that I mentioned earlier, it was very much, okay, we need to do this thing now, like, and it wasn't really explained to me why, if there was alternatives, and you're in the middle of labor, so you don't have the voice to advocate for yourself. So yeah, when I if I could sum it up, I felt very out of control in the UK and very much in control in the UK, in Denmark, sorry. But then I do have to say that, so with my Danish birth here in Copenhagen, I knew quite early on, due to medical reasons, that I was going to have a cesarean for this one, so very different birth. It was planned, scheduled, I knew the date, the time, it was so relaxed, whereas with my first one, Like I said, he was induced, so, and it all happened like really, really quickly. So it's just, it was a bit of a blur, and suddenly we're at the hospital and it's all a big thing. Whereas here in Copenhagen, it was like 9 a.m. on this morning. Me and Steve, my husband, literally had a really nice, like, summery, sunlit stroll, calm, relaxed to the hospital. Like, it was night and day. It could not have been more different experiences. And also the midwives over here in Denmark, when I was still pregnant, obviously they want to hear about how your first birth went, and just your kind of medical history with that. They were very, very supportive and open, and it just felt more like a dialogue that we were having together. It wasn't just kind of like, okay, so this is what we're gonna do for you. It was like, it felt more of a two-way street kind of thing. So yeah, I do think a lot of that has to do with the different types of birth that I had, like my own special circumstances, that kind of thing. But I had such, I don't know, maybe this is a spoiler alert, but if I could just sum up this whole video, I had such a positive experience here, like really, really, like, it wasn't just the nature of the birth that was traumatic in the UK, it was a little bit how, I'll get into it later, kind of how I was treated, but versus here, it was night and day. I'm so thankful that, and I don't mean this in a pandering way, but I'm so thankful to the Danish healthcare system, all the nurses, midwives, doctors, just so grateful that they could provide me with a positive experience after such a negative one, because now I have like a happy birth memory, you know what I mean? Like with my son, it's like, first of all, I don't even remember, like I was so out of it, whereas this one, it gave me a positive experience, so for that I am eternally grateful. So then moving on to the hospitals themselves, maybe I'll try and find some pictures. I don't really know the best way to describe this, but the London hospital looked very, very British, and the Danish hospital looked very, very Danish. And I know that sounds stupid, but just, you know, countries have like a look, like there's, yeah, they have a look. Like the Danish hospital, I think they had like an architecture firm design it, so it's all very like modern and sleek inside. This was at Rigshospitalet, by the way, so that's, I think it's their university hospital. It's the one that like royals give birth at, which is another thing. So in the UK, there's very much, even if it's not spoken about, like class, your class background is still very much, I don't know, it's still a conversation, let's say, over there, even if it's not overtly, like someone might judge you on your accent or where you went to school, things like that, whereas things are a bit more, the playing field is a bit more even over here in Denmark, so it's not seen as weird that I gave birth at a hospital that the royals give birth at. That's just kind of like, it's not even a thing. Whereas over in the UK, a lot of mothers, they will go private so that they can go give birth on the wards that royals give birth on, for example. It's just totally different. And yeah, just the way they look, it's very different. I remember for my first birth in London, we showed my mother-in-law a picture of the hospital in London, and she made just like an offhand comment, like she didn't mean anything about it, but she just goes, it looks like a prison. And like at the time I was kind of like, oh, like, because you don't want to hear anything negative about your birth the first time around. You're so nervous about everything. Now I'm not saying that it looks like a prison, but now like I can see where she's coming from, because she's used to that kind of like sleek, modern Danish design for like public institutions, healthcare places, all that stuff. Just visually, it's nothing to do with like the level of care that you get at either of them. They're both good. But yeah, just visually, one looks very, very British, one looks very, very Danish. So that was the first thing that struck me as a foreigner in kind of both countries. Then that moves on to the rooms, the hospital rooms themselves. Something you might not think about, but you know, whenever you see a birth on TV, the mother always has like a private room, like family gathers around the bed. It's all very nice and quiet. Not really the case, especially not in London. So I think the room that I was in, and this was like typical of all the rooms, there was either 6 or 8. I think there were 6 beds to one big room, and you're just separated by a curtain. And it's literally like you have the bed. I'm in the bed. The baby's next to me in a little like roller baby bed, and you have space for a chair next to you, and that's it. And then there's a curtain around you. So really not a lot of privacy. Like, of course, visually you can't see other people, but you can hear everything going on. If people have visitors, you know about it. If they're having a phone call, you know everything. Yeah, I wasn't so bothered by it at the time, just because you're in like this happy baby bubble of happiness. You have this new, you know, bundle of joy that you're kind of focused on. Going back to me having a traumatic birth, I was in hospital the first time for 6 days. So that's, by the end of it, I was very, very happy to get out of there and just get to my own space. And that one, so you had 6 beds and there was a shared bathroom with the whole ward. So that was, I was expecting it to be really bad. It wasn't. It was clean. I mean, you can't really ask for that much more when there's that many people sharing it and coming and going all the time. That was quite good. But over here in Denmark, it was 2 beds to a room, and then you get your own private bathroom with a shower, like everything inside. And then on top of that, they have separate, like on the main ward, they've got like guest bathrooms that visitors can go to. So that was really nice. And also we didn't have, like, it was really only because we were this time here giving birth in Copenhagen. We were there for two nights. Yeah, so 2 days, 2 nights. We had it to ourselves the first day and night, and it was really only like kind of the last day that we had a couple people coming. We had, I think, 2 different mothers use the bed next to us, but everyone was very respectful. And again, it's just separated by a curtain, so it's not super private. But at least I knew this time I wouldn't. Like last time, I had no idea I'd be staying 6 days, but there I was. This time I knew I was only going to be staying 2 nights, so that was fine. One thing that I didn't notice, because obviously I'm not coming in now, but something that Steve, my husband, he noticed, was in the UK for the wards, to get onto the maternity ward, everything is like super high security. Like you have to like verify who you are, who you're there to see. Like you're like you have to be like buzzed into the, like you can't just like open the door and go in. You have to be buzzed in. Whereas here in Denmark, just everything's open. Anyone could like walk in. So I thought that was quite interesting. But again, that's not something that I had noticed because I'm in a bed. I'm not I'm not coming in and out. But I think that just speaks to, again, the differences. I think UK is very much like, they're a lot more security. Who are you? Like, especially in a big city like London, because I mean, you could get anyone coming and you wouldn't know. Whereas in Denmark, it's a smaller community. Like even though Copenhagen's a city, there's a lot more trust of people who love what you're doing there, kind of thing. Then with the hospital as well, there was a more kind of thorough. I think in the UK they're more thorough with like baby checks after the birth. Like we had different people coming and going for like checking his hips and all these different things. We had like different people from different departments. They would come and visit us at different times that we were at the hospital. Whereas here in Denmark, that comes later. That you'll give birth, you'll be at the hospital, you'll go home, and then later you have like a home nurse come to your home. Home nurse, of course. She'll come to your home and she'll do all those checks here at your house. So that's just kind of a bit of a difference there. And then also at the same time, so both my babies got jaundice, and there's something that's very common. It's when their skin turns yellow, and it's something to do with like their livers or their kidney trying to process to process out toxins, and it's suddenly getting breast milk and all this stuff. It's very, very normal. In the UK, it was treated as very much like, oh my god, we need to do something now. He needs light therapy, like immediately. They sit in this little box and they get like UV rays, like a sunbed kind of thing. And over here in Denmark, like I because of my firstborn, I knew that the second one was getting it, and they were kind of like, yeah, no, it's fine, like it doesn't really look like it to me. And then like it was kind of brought up later by the home nurse. She was like, yeah, no, I could see, like if it gets worse, like we can get a blood test done, blah blah blah. But it was a lot more relaxed over here, whereas in the UK it was like, I don't know, almost like panicked me, because I didn't realize at the time that it was normal, that it like, you just don't, you don't know anything. So they were kind of panicking me a little bit, but here in Denmark it was very relaxed. And another thing that I really appreciated over here, so after they're born, they get like, the babies get a little blood test, and they do it on their heel. Here in Denmark, they've got an amazing, it almost looks like a what do you call it, like a hole punch or something. They get the baby's heel, done, and then you might get a little yip, like the baby like might do a little cry, or might cry, or didn't really seem that fussed. In the UK, they don't, at least in my hospital, they don't seem to have that, I don't even want to say technology because it's nothing advanced. It was literally just a little like stapler type thing. They don't have that. And so they were literally with, and this is what the Danish nurse was saying that they used to do in the olden days. They literally just had a scalpel and they were trying to like nick his heel, trying to get some blood, and they couldn't get the blood. And so he was screaming, and they had to try all these different things, like filling a rubber glove full of warm water, putting it on that, trying to get like the blood flow, because it's a bit of a tricky area to get blood. And it was going on and on. I remember I was crying, the baby was crying. It was very like, if I could have just had that little clipper thing and be done with it, I would have very much appreciated it. So that's just a little difference that I noticed that they do in each different hospital. So on to the staff. I have to say both like midwives, doctors, everything's in both hospitals were great. Like I think to do this kind of work, you really have to be passionate about your work, you know, helping people. So I think you get like a certain type of person for sure. I did have some bad, well, I'll say a bad experience. There was one midwife who kind of added to the trauma of my birth, the first birth, and I don't really know how much to like get into it. I don't know how interesting it is, but basically she was just really like standoffish, didn't say a word to us, like was kind of giving us like one word responses to our questions, like when is it coming, blah blah blah, like just any questions we had. She was just really not engaged at all, which is fine. Maybe she, you know, she's having a bad day, maybe she's tired, it's all right. But things that weren't all right was just things like she, you know, taking the blood pressure, she had to put that little cuff on. At one point it was like cutting into my skin, and I was like screaming at her to like stop, like stop doing the air thing, because it was one of the like the manual ones that she was like controlling. She just wasn't believing me that it was cutting in. She wasn't believing. I ended up having to get 3 epidurals and a spinal tap, because the needle, so when you get an epidural, sorry if you're squeamish, maybe skip 10 seconds here, you get a needle in your spine. Had to have that 4 times, which was so much fun, let me tell you. Because it kept falling out. I don't know if that's just people putting it in wrong. Maybe I was moving, I don't know what the reason was, but I had to have, and she wasn't really believing that, like, okay, I'm feeling everything, I don't want to feel everything. That's why I have epidural in big capital letters at the top of my birth plan. I do not want to feel that, like, as much of this as possible. And she just wasn't believing me, and she just it kind of added to the whole, she was to the point of not believing me, to the point of her being hostile towards me. And you're in such a vulnerable like position that, you know, like I said earlier, you can't advocate for yourself. You're not in a position to speak up for yourself in any meaningful way, at least. And just, yeah, so then I when she went out of the room, I think it was kind of towards the end of her shift anyway, and a doctor came in just to see how things were progressing. I just had like a quiet word to the doctor, like, can I please swap midwives, because she's like hurting me, she's not believing that I'm in pain. Yeah, to this day I don't really know what her deal was. Maybe it was a bad day, maybe she just didn't like me, I don't know. She just wasn't believing me at all. And I've since like read that this is very common, like not believing women in childbirth that they're in pain, or just even in any medical situation, is like women are very often like kind of brushed off and like not believed. And that very much happened to me. But it was only that one midwife. I do want to stress that. Everyone else was absolutely amazing. And that doctor that I had a word with, she was like, yep, no problem at all, like I will arrange that. But then it didn't end there with this midwife. She decides to come storming back into my room. I don't know why this was allowed. Standing at the end of my bed, and this was literally, my son was born within the hour, so I was like very far, like I was in labor, like heavy labor, and by that point, the spinal tap or whatever, it was worked. So you are paralyzed. I'm just literally sat in bed. You can move your arms around, your legs, like someone could punch you and you wouldn't know it. You are just dead from the waist down. So I can't like physically remove myself from this situation, from this person that I don't already feel safe around, you know. So it was so stressful. She came to the end of my bed. She's like, so I heard you wanted to swap midwives, and she was like trying to start a fight with me while I'm in labor. It was just, the whole thing was just awful, awful, awful. Thinking back on it now, I wish I had made a complaint, like, but you know, you get back from the hospital and you're just like, you're happy, you're in baby mode, you just want to forget about it and move on. I think because I didn't really process that trauma plus the whole like medical trauma of it, I didn't really realize until I got pregnant with my second one just how like impacted I was by all of that. Like I'm very much just, okay, like just move on, just kind of forget about it. But I didn't really realize that it, like I very much like, yeah, I internalized it, and it was something that I kind of needed to process to be able to get through this second pregnancy and birth. And that's why I was saying at the beginning, like I'm just so grateful that I had like a positive experience for the second birth, because the first one, it literally just, it could not have gone more wrong. I mean, me and the baby could have died. Like, that would be the worst case scenario. That didn't happen. Thankfully, the baby came out. He's happy and healthy. That's good. But just that midwife, that was just a horror story. Like, yeah. And I experienced nothing like that in Denmark at all. No one had that kind of like attitude. I think that was it. She kind of just had a bit of an attitude. Here in Denmark, everyone from like the doctor all the way to like an assistant or just whoever comes into your room, they always introduce themselves and they say who they are. So like, I am Dr. blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be doing this. So you are fully on board. You know exactly who everyone is, even if they're just like shadowing the doctor or, you know, just helping out, whatever. I'm helping with the meds or whatever. Like everyone says hi and introduces themselves. And that really, really puts you at ease, because you just, you know, you're fully informed, you know exactly what's going to happen, you know who everyone is. And it's just nice, you know, like being able to talk to people by their name. Like it's not just like pressing a buzzer and a new midwife is coming, you don't know who they are. Like that's very nice. They did try to do that in the UK as well, but you know, again, it's a busy hospital. Some things might get missed. You must very much get it drilled into the medical school here, because literally, unfailingly, every single one introduced themselves, which was very nice. So this is already getting very long, so let's go into aftercare. So after you go home, after the birth, like I briefly mentioned, you get it was meant to be the next day after you get home, but because I went home on a Friday, she didn't come till Monday. You get a home nurse coming to your home. They do the full baby check, they make sure you're okay, do any checks that you need to do, answer any questions, check that the baby's eating okay, if you're breastfeeding, whatever, like just making sure everything's okay. And I got an amazing, I love my home nurse, she's so good. And they actually come, I can't remember the months, it's like 2 days after the birth, and then like 4 weeks, and then 8 weeks, and then all the way, I think you get 5 visits within the first year of the baby's life, plus the visits that you take them to the doctor, to your own GP for, you know, baby checkups, vaccinations, things like that. Whereas in the UK, everything is, no, that's not true. In the UK, I got 2 midwife visits. I can't remember how soon after the birth. I remember it was within a week or a week and a half of my firstborn's birth that the first midwife came. And they do the same, check the baby, weigh them, make sure you're okay, answer any questions. So that's kind of similar, but then after those 2 visits, it stops. From there on, you're responsible for getting the baby to your GP for checkups. And yeah, so that's a little bit different. Otherwise, all vaccinations, everything is the same. Maybe a couple weeks difference with some of them. Like I think in the UK, the baby gets the first vaccinations at 8 weeks, whereas here it's 3 months. So just tiny little changes like that, but it's all the same, like, yeah, vaccinations that you get. And over in the UK, you get a little red book. I'll try and put a picture up on the screen here. That has all your baby's information, their growth charts, their vaccination information, all that. Whereas here, of course, in Denmark, it's all digitized. So you don't have to carry this book around with you, which is very much appreciated. But other than that, it's pretty, the aftercare is, yeah, on that front is pretty equal. Denmark does shine though in that they're very, and maybe it's changed since I gave birth, I don't know, but they're very, very big here on conversations around not just like postnatal depression, both for the father and the mother. They're very, very supportive with that and fully acknowledge that it can happen to dads as well as moms. It's not just like a woman thing. But I thought this was amazing. They offer, so up to a year or like a little bit after a year after your birth, if you, for example, I would have loved this for my first birth, if you had like a traumatic birth, or there's just something that you want to ask, like, why did this happen the way it did, or you're not, you know, just some kind of bad feelings you have about your birth, you can approach the hospital. I don't know if it has to go through your GP or the hospital or what, but you can approach them and you can meet with someone who was there at your birth, not your birth, your baby's birth, to talk through like a therapy session basically. So they can answer for you. They were there, like, you know, they know your exact medical history, your situation, everything. And that's available to do up to like a year after the baby's birth, and I thought that was amazing. And like I said, this birth was so positive that I didn't need to do that, and if the UK doesn't do that already, I think that's something that they absolutely need to explore. I know it's, you know, London, busy hospitals, it's on a bigger scale, all that stuff, but if, you know, I think it's something that definitely needs to be looked at if they don't do it already. So maybe if you've given birth in the UK since 2019, is that something that they did in your hospital? I would love to know. Maybe it was just my hospital didn't do it, I don't know, but that definitely was not offered to me. If it is a thing, I wasn't told about it in the UK, but over here in Denmark, they're really, really big on like aftercare, mental well-being, just everything. I cannot sing the praises of the Danish healthcare system enough when it comes to childbirth. They have it right. And yeah, our home nurse would also kind of screen for the postnatal depression, both for me and for the father. Like, it's just, and there's no like stigma, like I have the mobile number of my home nurse. She's like, text me at any time, call me at any time if you have any questions or concerns, or if you do decide, oh, actually I do need a little bit extra help. So I really, really appreciated that, even though it wasn't really necessary for me, just knowing that it was there, that it's an option, and that you're not a burden, that it's, you know, you don't have to make an appointment for your GP and then it's just this whole big like hassle, this whole big process that you have to do. You can literally just like call this one person, you can get some help, and it's sorted. So I really, really appreciated that. Then there's baby groups. Again, this is getting long, so I'm going to try and cut it down, but there's so much to talk about. So I have to say I prefer how it all works in the UK, and just that, I mean, it's London, there's always something going on, and London it's almost like a lot of like small towns kind of all clumped together. So there's, in your own small town, your borough, there's always tons of stuff, and then different boroughs will have different stuff. So you can go to like there's always something, you can find something to do. There's a baby group for you somewhere. Most of them are free, or they're like £1 or something, and then you'll get like a cup of coffee, like crappy coffee, but hey, you're sleep deprived, you don't care. Some of them, they'll have like little snacks, like some fruit or vegetable sticks for your baby or your toddler. And yeah, I remember all of them just being like drop in, like you could just show up on the day and time that you know it's happening and you're welcomed. Whereas here in Denmark, it's so frustrating. Like, if you're a mom in Copenhagen and you know of like another way, and some special groups that I'm missing out on, let me know down in the comments, please. But it's very much here in Denmark, you have to kind of like prepay, like, I don't know, say you're going to join this like baby singing and musical instrument class, and you have to commit to like 8 weeks of lessons, I don't know, 8 weeks of the groups. And if you can't make it, if the weather's bad, if your baby's sleeping when it's time for the group, then you're still paying for that class. It's I don't know, just financially, it doesn't really make sense to me. There are 1 or 2 free groups. I'm not saying that there's none. Like, that's usually at churches. It'll be like baby hymn singing, things like that. But even usually those you have to pay like 20 or 30 kroner or something like that. And again, you have to kind of like let them know in advance that you'll be going, which is like, for me, I find that quite difficult. Like, you don't know what, you know, if you're going to have a good night of sleep the night before, if your baby's extra fussy that day, or if they're just asleep that day at the time of the class. So it's a lot more inflexible here. And they also have a lot of, you know, like private members clubs that are like really hot right now around the world, like where you join, like Soho House, something like that. They have that for like babies over here, not as like exclusive, or you know what I mean, like you don't have to like anyone can join, you just have to pay the fee. But it will be houses like that where you pay a subscription, and there's like different tiers that you can pay, and you get different, like some, I think the most expensive ones will include some like baby classes. The basic ones will just be literally like entrance, and then once you're in there, you can add on, there'll be like baby yoga, baby like sensory, like just different baby groups that you can join within that house. Some of them also have like cafeterias, so you can like meet with other parents on their maternity leave and just socialize a bit more. That maybe has become a thing in London since I was there, but that wasn't really a thing when I was. But I remember with my first baby, and also he was born in April, so we had the whole like summer. It was really nice. My second baby now, he was born in July, which sounds nice, but of course you're not kind of going out of the house that much until they're a couple months old, and it's cold, it's winter, it's we've kind of like shifted the time of year that we're out and about anyway, so we haven't really been going to those baby groups as much. And yeah, I don't really want to commit to some big expense if I know that some of the groups I won't be able to make it to. So just that kind of thing, I really prefer how they do it in the UK, where it's very flexible, drop in whenever you want, baby's asleep, no problem, you haven't spent any money. I wish they had that more here in Denmark. I do understand why they don't. I mean, it's if the demand isn't as high, you don't want to, you know, the group thrower, what do you call it, the group host, doesn't want to be like out of pocket, or you know, no one shows up to the group kind of thing and you're sat there like twiddling your thumbs. So you do want to kind of know how many people are coming. I get that, but I just wish it was more like how it was in London, because that was just so easy. It was like no stress at all. You could just, I really preferred that. Okay, and last little section I'll do is like just extras that I've noticed. The first is the lovely name register over here in Denmark. You might have heard that in a lot of the Scandinavian countries, they have like a list of approved names that you can name your babies to kind of keep with local traditions, that you don't name your baby anything like offensive or weird, like things like that. When I first heard it, I was like, how dare they try and control what I name my baby? But it's like literally, it's like my name's on there, which is super uncommon in Denmark, so it's not restrictive at all. Like any name you want, pretty much it will be on that list. And our name was, so it wasn't a problem. And the good thing is that you can do that all online, so that was super easy. You literally just fill out a form and it's all there. They have your details, the father's details, everything. It's all super easy. It took me like, I don't even think it took 5 minutes to register his name. Versus in the UK, you have to like physically go to an office. Again, maybe it's changed, maybe it's not the same everywhere in the UK, but I had to go, and you have to do it within 2 weeks after your birth. And as we've said, I was in hospital for the first week after he was born, so that leaves another week. And I had a very traumatic birth, very physically, like mentally, just everything was just like awful. So for me physically to get to that, they do it in like the town hall type thing. For me to like physically get there, it was like a huge thing, that I'm very happy I don't ever have to repeat again, because it was like painful. It was just, it was horrible. But you physically have to go there, and you have to like, it's almost like an interview, like so it's where they issue the birth certificate. So they give it to you on that day. They like print it out in front of you. And she made a big like deal about how they use like special like ink that's issued by the Queen, and like all this stuff, like we will know, like you can't like forge it and all this stuff. And she was interviewing us like, what exact minute was your son born? Like she was trying to verify that we were the parents, and we didn't just like rock up with this like random baby, which like how often does that happen? I don't know, but it's like a whole thing. And we felt really like kind of like not under pressure, but just a little bit taken aback by like how rigorous it was. It's just like, we're just here to register his name, his birth, everything. It was fine in the end. There was no like issue, but just the fact that you have to like physically go to these offices when you're physically recovering from something is not ideal. So I very much appreciated the system that they had here, where you could just do it all online in like 2 minutes. And then I guess just maybe I'll do a part 3. I wasn't going to do this, but maybe I'll do a part 3 of like maternity leave, because I was going to mention about baby buggies, because that's like, there's very different styles of baby buggies here in the UK, here in Denmark versus the UK. And maybe if you've been a tourist over here in Denmark, you might have noticed they have like these ginormous, I think they're ginormous, they're like big boats, these big baby buggies, often with like a little sidecar that you can like put all your shopping in. It's just all these things that were very like, I tried to find the like thinnest, smallest, most compact, but still like supportive baby buggy that I could in London, because I knew I was going to be going on public transport. Like, could I lift it myself? Like all these things, whereas here it's a very, very different style. So if you would like to know about maternity leave differences, I could do a part 3. There's definitely a lot more to talk about there. But other than that, I think I might wrap it up here because I've talked long enough, and yeah, hopefully you've gotten something out of this video. And then just moving on to a little channel update. Obviously, as you can see, I'm on kind of a half hiatus. I'm trying to do stuff where I can. I kind of foolishly convinced myself, yeah, I'll just be bringing the baby along to like out filming and all this stuff. But like I said, it's been very cold and just not, you know, you're sleep deprived, and he might be a bit fussy that day. So it's been a lot harder filming than I anticipated. So I'm just trying to like film where I can, but not stress myself out at the same time, maintain my sanity. But he's going to be starting nursery or vuggestue in August, so in summertime he'll be in daycare, and then from there it's my plan to start filming regularly again. I'm telling myself I wanted to go back to once a week, like how I started this channel. Might have to be once every 2 weeks, but just for example, the Copenhagen Easter egg video that I did a couple weeks ago, I'll link down in the episode description. That, like, pre-young baby, that would have taken me maybe 2 days max to film, edit, get finished. That time it took me like a week and a half. I had to like plan meticulously, like, okay, at this like 7 in the morning I could do my makeup. At this time like we have to sort out the toddler as well, who's like, that's a whole thing. So it was just this whole mission, and it's not like, it's fine, it's just I'm not super happy with certain aspects of the video, so I don't want to like kind of compromise on quality just for the sake of like churning out content. I'd really rather focus on just getting everyone settled, and I can really focus on what I need to and keep because I really value like quality on this content, not just churning out videos, and the quality isn't there, no one wants to watch that. So I'd rather do less videos but do better videos. So I might be posting a lot less frequently until summertime, but that's my plan. I plan to go back to full-time doing videos in the summer. Until then, I have been chipping away at my Instagram, which was sadly neglected before. I think I started doing it again recently. I hadn't posted in like over a year. It was sad. But if you want to follow me down there, I'll put a link in the episode description. I'm starting to do daily like short form content, things that I can do around the baby easily. So I'm doing a lot of like reels, posts, things like that, lots of fun content. So if you want to stay in touch, go say hi down there, give me a follow, and we can kind of stay connected that way until summertime. But yeah, so hopefully I'll be able to do another video at least before summer. So yeah, to sum up this whole video, thank you so much for watching and for being patient with me while I'm on this kind of like mini hiatus. But definitely keep in touch on Instagram and leave me comments here if you have any ideas. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.